The stars outside the ship's window blinked like silent watchers. Captain Elias Voss sat alone in the cockpit of his old freighter, the Wayfarer. It was just another delivery job, transporting supplies from Mars to a small mining station near the outer belt. He didn't expect anything strange, until the alarm beeped. Unidentified signal, the computer spoke in its calm, robotic voice. Elias frowned. He leaned forward and tapped the screen. The radar showed a small object drifting in space, not far, from his current route. It wasn't moving fast, just floating. No reply came from his hails. He debated ignoring it. Time was money, and he had a job to finish. But something about the signal felt different. He sighed and changed course. 10 minutes later he saw it. A small damaged escape pod tumbled slowly through the black void. Its hull was scorched, and half its lights were out. One side had a strange symbol, alien but familiar. Elias zoomed in. Azari, he whispered. He hadn't seen that symbol in years. The Azari were a proud alien race, beautiful, tall, strong, and once very powerful. But their empire had fallen after a long war. Most of them had vanished from public space. Seeing one of their pods here was like finding a ghost. Elias moved in closer and activated the grappler. The pod latched onto his ship with a small metallic clunk. He opened the bay doors and went down to the cargo deck wearing his light pressure suit. Inside the pod, the lights flickered. The door wouldn't open at first. He used a manual override, and with a hiss, it finally slid open. A figure lay inside. She was tall, slim, with pale violet skin and long silver hair. Her armor was cracked and her breathing was shallow. Her body trembled. Elias quickly checked her pulse. Still alive. Her eyes opened slowly, sharp and golden. She stared at him with fear, then confusion. Her voice came out rough and weak. Are you human? Elias nodded slowly. Yes, I'm Captain Elias Voss. You're safe now. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. I am Kailari, of the Azari Vanguard. My squad was destroyed. I am the last. Elias helped her out of the pod carefully. She resisted at first, her pride still strong, but her strength was fading. I don't have time to explain everything, she said, her voice shaking. But I beg you, do not leave me here. Elias looked at her surprised. The Azari never begged. They commanded. This one was clearly different. I offer you my life debt, Kailari continued. Let me serve you. Let me repay this mercy. I have no home left. He paused, thinking. I didn't save you to make you serve me. That's not how humans work. She looked at him, confused. But without purpose, I am nothing. Then maybe, Elias said gently, you just need a new purpose. She said nothing. Elias guided her to the med bay. Her injuries weren't life-threatening, but she needed rest and food. As he treated her wounds, she watched him quietly. He didn't treat her like a prisoner or a burden. He didn't ask for anything in return. Later, after she had eaten and was resting in the small guest cabin, she stared at the ceiling. She had never met a human like this. Her people always saw humans as chaotic, wild, and unrefined. But this one, this Elias, was calm, kind, and honest. He had no reason to help her, yet he did. Why? Back in the cockpit, Elias watched the stars again. He didn't know who Kailari really was, or why she was abandoned. But something told him she was important, not just to him, but maybe to something greater. He didn't need a servant. He didn't want someone in his debt. But he saw a lost soul. And sometimes humanity's greatest strength was simply this. They helped, even when they didn't have to. Kailari lay on the small bed in the guest cabin of the Wayfarer. Her silver hair spilled across the pillow, and her golden eyes stared quietly at the ceiling. The soft hum of the ship's engines was a strange comfort. She had never felt anything like this, peace after chaos. But inside her pride burned like a silent fire. She was an Azari warrior, once part of a proud and powerful empire. She had been trained to fight, to lead, and to obey without question. To ask for mercy or help was weakness, and yet here she was, saved by a human. The thought made her uneasy. Her people believed humans were reckless and wild. They thought humans lacked discipline and honor. But Elias, this human, had shown her kindness, not as a conqueror or master, but as an equal. Still, Kailari could not shake the weight of her past. She remembered the day her squadron was ordered to destroy a civilian colony suspected of aiding the enemy. She had refused. Her commanders called it betrayal. She had been branded a traitor and left to die. Now she was alone. One evening, Elias found her sitting quietly in the small common area. She wore simple clothes, a far cry from her damaged armor. "Kailari," Elias said softly, "do you want to talk?" She looked up, surprised. Humans were often direct and open. That was another thing about Elias. He did not hide his feelings. "I do not understand humans," she said. "Why did you save me? Why do you care?" Elias smiled. "Because it's the right thing to do. We help others, even strangers, when they need it. It's part of who we are." Kailari frowned. "I was raised to be strong, to never show weakness. Asking for help is shameful." Elias shook his head. "Strength isn't about hiding pain or never asking for help. Sometimes true strength is knowing when you need others." She considered his words. It was difficult for her to accept, but Elias's calm voice made her want to believe. "Do you regret your choice?" she asked quietly. "Refusing to follow orders?" Elias thought for a moment. "I think sometimes you have to choose what is right, even if it means standing alone." Kailari's eyes softened. "You are unlike any human I have heard of." Elias laughed softly. "Maybe I'm just lucky." The days passed, and Kailari learned more about humans. She listened as Elias told stories of Earth, its history, its struggles, and its victories. She was fascinated by how humans, despite their flaws, never gave up. One afternoon, while Elias was repairing a part of the ship, Kailari walked to the observation deck. She stared at the stars, feeling small but hopeful. Elias joined her silently. "Thinking about your home?" She nodded. "I have lost everything. My family, my squadron, my people. Sometimes I wonder if I even belong anywhere." Elias looked at her with gentle eyes. "Home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's the people you choose to stand with." Kailari smiled faintly. "And you think I could belong here among humans?" "I don't just think it," Elias said firmly. "I know it." Her heart quickened. For the first time she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. But Kailari's pride would not let her forget her past. She wanted to repay Elias's kindness. "I owe you my life. I must serve you." Elias shook his head again. "No debts here. You're my guest, not my servant." She looked away. "In my culture, loyalty means giving everything to the one who saves you. Maybe it's time to make new rules," Elias said with a grin. Kailari chuckled softly, a sound like distant bells. She realized she was learning more than survival. She was learning trust. That night, as the stars passed outside, Kailari lay awake. She thought about what Elias had said, that strength was about knowing when to lean on others. She was tired of fighting alone. Maybe this human was right. Maybe she didn't have to carry the past forever. Tomorrow, she would start to find a new purpose. The hum of the Wayfarer's engines was steady as it moved closer to Earth's space station. Kailari had never been this close to human civilization before. The towering metal spires, bright lights, and endless movement were both fascinating and overwhelming. Elias sat at the navigation console, glancing back at her. "You ready for this?" Kailari nodded, her golden eyes wide but determined. I'm curious to see how humans live. It is very different from Azari worlds." Elias smiled. "Yeah, Earth is a strange place. Sometimes noisy, sometimes messy, but it's home." As the ship docked, Kailari noticed the diversity around her. Humans of many shapes and sizes, dressed in all sorts of clothing, moved with purpose. They spoke many languages, laughed, argued, and worked side by side. To Kailari, this chaos was beautiful. Stepping off the ship, Elias guided her through customs and security. Kailari noticed curious glances. Some humans whispered, others stared, openly. She felt the weight of being an outsider. "Don't mind them," Elias said softly. "People are just curious." They reached a quiet lounge where Elias introduced Kailari to his small crew. Maya, a mechanic with quick hands and a quick smile. Jonas, a quiet pilot who rarely spoke but had sharp eyes. And Lena, the ship's medic, who greeted Kailari warmly. "Welcome aboard," Maya said with a grin. "Heard about the alien princess on the Wayfarer." Kailari blinked. "I am no princess." Yeah, Maya laughed. "But you're still welcome." Over the next few days, Kailari learned about human culture. She watched Maya fix machines with skill and patience. She saw Jonas quietly chart courses through asteroid fields. She admired Lena's gentle care for the sick and injured. Humans were different from Azari in many ways. They valued creativity, humor, and community. They celebrated differences instead of hiding them. One evening, as they ate simple food in the ship's small kitchen, Kailari shared stories of her home. She spoke of the Azari's discipline and honor, their struggles, and the war that tore them apart. Elias listened carefully. "Sounds like your people had a strong code." "We did," Kailari said. "But it also made us unforgiving. There was no room for mistakes or mercy." Elias nodded. "Humans make a lot of mistakes, but we also try to learn from them." Kailari thought about that. She had been taught that weakness was a crime, but here, she saw strength in forgiveness, hope in new beginnings. Days later, they visited a bustling market on the station. Kailari was amazed by the variety of goods and the friendly chaos. A young child tugged on Elias's sleeve, pointing excitedly at Kailari. "Is she a space princess?" the child asked. Kailari smiled and knelt. "I'm no princess, just someone trying to find her way." The child laughed and gave her a small flower. Kailari held it carefully, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. But not everyone was kind. Later, a group of men in dark uniforms approached the ship. Their leader showed a badge and spoke coldly. "We're here for the Azari fugitive. Hand her over." Elias stood tall. "You'll have to go through me." Kailari's heart raced. Her past was catching up. But Elias's crew gathered behind him, ready to defend their new friend. "Why do you protect me?" Kailari asked Elias quietly. "Because you're part of this now," he said simply. "We don't leave anyone behind." That night, Kailari lay awake again. The faces of humans, some kind, some suspicious, swirled in her mind. She realized that being among humans meant more than survival. It meant learning to trust and belong. She was no longer just a lone warrior lost in the void. She was part of something new, something worth fighting for. The stars twinkled coldly as the Wayfarer cruised through the outer rim of human space, but beneath the calm surface, tension filled the air. Kailari sat quietly in the observation deck, her golden eyes watching distant suns. The peace of the moment was broken by a sharp beep from the ship's alert system. Elias strode in, his face serious. "We've got company." Kailari stood, instinctively reaching for the small blade she always carried, a relic from her Azari past. Elias raised a hand. "Not yet. Let me handle this." The radar showed two fast ships closing in, well-armed and dangerous. Kailari's heart tightened. She knew those ships. They carried the symbol of the Azari elite, the ones who had abandoned her bounty hunters, Elias said grimly. "They want you." Kailari clenched her fists. "I thought I was free." "Not yet," Elias replied. "They think you're a traitor. They want to bring you back, dead or alive." The Wayfarer's crew prepared for battle. Elias issued calm commands as the enemy ships closed. The freighter was no match for their speed or firepower, But Elias was clever and knew how to use the asteroid belt to their advantage. "Take us through the belt," Elias ordered. "We'll use the rocks as cover." Kalari watched Elias move with confidence, directing the ship through the maze of asteroids. The enemy fired, their lasers flashing through space. The hull shook with each hit. Suddenly, one of the missiles exploded near the ship, sending a shower of sparks. The crew scrambled to repair the damage. Kalari's training kicked in. "I will help. I know their tactics." Elias nodded. "Good. We'll need every advantage." They worked side by side. Kalari took the gun turret, firing carefully at the pursuers. Her aim was precise, honed by years of war. She scored a hit, damaging one of the enemy ships. The hunters changed tactics, spreading out to surround the Wayfarer. Kalari's breath was steady. "They expect me to run. They think you will give me up." Elias looked at her. "I won't." She smiled faintly. "In Azari culture, loyalty means everything. But I see your kind of loyalty is different. It is stronger." The fight grew, fiercer. One enemy ship fired a blast that tore through the freighter's rear engine. The ship slowed. "Evasive maneuvers," Elias shouted. Kalari continued firing, buying time. The crew worked desperately to fix the engine. Suddenly, the enemy leader's ship moved in for a boarding attack. A small shuttle was launched toward the Wayfarer. "Boarders!" Jonas shouted, grabbing his rifle. Kalari stood ready. "This is my fight now." As the shuttle docked, the hatch opened. 4 heavily armed Azari warriors stepped inside. Kalari faced them without fear. "I am no longer your enemy," she said firmly. "Stand down," the leader sneered. "Traitor, you betrayed your people." "I betrayed orders to save innocent lives," Kalari replied. "That is my honor." The Azari attacked. Kalari moved with swift precision, blocking and striking. Elias and the crew fought alongside her, surprising the intruders with their unity. In the chaos, Kalari's voice rose above the noise. "I choose my own path now, not as a slave or a pawn. I fight for what is right." The boarding party was pushed back and forced to retreat. The enemy ships, seeing their plan fail, pulled away. Breathing heavily, Elias looked at Kalari. "You didn't have to fight alone." She nodded. "You did not leave me. That is more than I expected." Elias smiled. "Humans don't abandon their own." As the battle ended, Kalari felt a new strength inside her. She was no longer running from her past, but standing with those who chose to stand with her. Together, they would face whatever came next. After the battle in the asteroid belt, the Wayfarer moved cautiously toward a remote system known for ancient ruins. Elias and Kalari sat together in the ship's small briefing room, staring at a holographic map of the region. Kalari traced her finger over the flickering image. "This is where the last of the Azari war engines were hidden. The ancient weapons of my people. They could bring destruction on a scale we have not seen for centuries." Elias nodded, his brow furrowed. "And you think the Azari elites still want to use it?" She sighed deeply. "Yes, they want to revive the old empire. They believe power comes from fear and control." Elias looked at her carefully. "If that's true, then stopping them isn't just your fight. It's everyone's." Kalari hesitated. "But if I fight against my own people, I could become an enemy to all Azari, worse than before." "You're already branded a traitor," Elias said quietly. "But you can choose what you stand for." She looked away, her mind torn between loyalty to her past and the hope of a better future. That night, Kalari stood by the observation window, watching stars drift by. Elias joined her. "You don't have to decide alone," he said softly. "We can face this together." For the first time, Kalari felt the weight of trust, not as a burden, but as a gift. The next day, the Wayfarer entered the derelict system. The ruins of an old Azari shipyard floated in silence, broken and forgotten. Kalari's heart ached. This was where her people had built weapons meant to conquer and destroy. Elias scanned the area. Sensors show an active energy signature deep inside the wreckage. Could be the war engine. Kalari nodded. Then we must move carefully. The Azari elites will guard it fiercely. They prepared for a landing. Elias's crew worked efficiently, loading weapons and gear. Kalari chose her ancient armor, repaired but still bearing the scars of past battles. As they stepped onto the ruined platform, the silence was heavy. Broken ships and twisted metal lay everywhere. The air smelled of rust and memories. Suddenly, a squad of elite Azari warriors appeared from the shadows, weapons drawn. "You dare enter sacred ground?" their leader demanded. Kalari stepped forward, voice strong. "I am Kalari of the Azari Vanguard. I do not seek war, but I will stop you from awakening destruction." The leader sneered. "You betrayed the Empire. You will die here." The battle was fierce. Kalari fought beside Elias and the crew, their teamwork unmatched. Amid the fight, Kalari reached the war engine's core. It pulsed with dangerous energy waiting to be unleashed. She planted explosives carefully, her hands steady despite the danger. With a final command, she triggered the blast. The war engine groaned and exploded in a brilliant flash. The ground shook. The Azari elites retreated in confusion and anger. Elias rushed to Kalari's side as debris fell around them. "You did it," she smiled weakly. "Not just me. We did it." Back on the ship, Kalari felt a quiet pride. She had stopped a great threat, but at the cost of turning fully against her old people. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You saved many lives today. Your people will remember that." Kalari looked out at the stars again. Maybe the future is not about empire or war. Maybe it is about peace. Elias smiled. That's the human way. For the first time in a long while, Kalari believed in a new path, one forged not by blood and honor alone, but by courage, friendship, and hope. The stars seemed colder and darker as the wayfarer approached the war zone. Elias and Kalari stood on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. They were not alone. A coalition of outcasts, rogue captains, and mercenaries had answered the call to stop the Azari elites. It was a ragtag group, but their purpose was clear: prevent the return of a war that could destroy entire star systems. Kalari's heart pounded. This battle was not just for survival, it was for the future. "We can't let them control the war engine," she said firmly. "If they do, everything we fought for will be lost." Elias nodded. "Then let's make sure that doesn't happen." The fleet moved into formation. The enemy Azari warships, sleek and deadly, glided closer, their weapons glowing ominously. As the battle began, lasers and missiles filled space with deadly light. Explosions rocked ships on both sides. Kalari piloted a fighter alongside Elias's crew, weaving through the chaos. She felt the familiar rush of battle, but this time it was different. She was fighting for something more than duty. She was fighting for choice. Suddenly, an enemy flagship appeared, a massive warship housing the war engine. It pulsed with energy, ready to unleash destruction. "We have to board that ship," Elias shouted. "Kalari, you're the best chance we have." Kalari nodded without hesitation. "I will lead the boarding party." The fighters covered the shuttle as it raced toward the enemy flagship. Kalari's heart beat fast as they docked, and the HFY hatch hissed open. Inside, the warship was cold and vast. The walls hummed with power. Azari elite warriors waited for them. Kalari's old commander stood at the front, eyes burning with anger. "So you betray your people again," he said sharply. "You will die for your treason." Kalari stepped forward, steady and strong. "I fight for peace, not for empire." The battle inside the ship was fierce. Kalari and her team moved quickly, disabling guards and making their way to the war engine's core. Her commander blocked their path. "You cannot stop what is coming." Kalari faced him, her voice calm. "I am stopping it for all of us." They fought with skill and determination. Kalari's blade clashed against his weapon. Sparks flew. With a final push, she broke through and reached the core. She began to disable the controls, her hands steady despite the pressure. Suddenly, alarms blared. The war engine began to activate. Elias's voice came over the comms. "Kailari, we're running out of time." She worked faster, sweat dripping down her face. Then a blast rocked the chamber. Elias burst in, pushing her out of the way just as the war engine exploded in a burst of light. They barely escaped as the warship crumbled around them. Back on the Wayfarer, Kailari caught her breath. Elias smiled, bruised but alive. "You saved us all," he said quietly. Kailari looked out at the stars. "We saved each other." The battle was over. The Azari warlords were defeated and the ancient threat destroyed. Kailari knew her life had changed forever. She was no longer a lost warrior, bound by old rules. She was a protector of new friends, new hopes, and a new future. Elias stood beside her, proud and steady. Together, they had faced the darkness and won. The war was over. The threat of the Azari war engine had been destroyed, and the dangerous ambitions of the Azari elites were no more. But the battle left more than just scars on the stars. It left changes in the hearts of those who survived. Kailari stood on the deck of the Wayfarer, watching the calm expanse of space. The stars were steady now, peaceful. The weight of her past felt lighter. Elias approached quietly and stood beside her. "You've come a long way, Kailari." She smiled softly. "I have, but I could not have done it without you." Elias shook his head. "No, you found your own strength. I only helped you see it." Kailari looked at him, her golden eyes bright. "When I first met you, I begged to serve you, to be your slave, your debt. But now I see that is not what I want." Elias raised an eyebrow, curious. "I want to stand beside you," she continued, "not as a servant, but as a friend, as a sister." Elias smiled warmly. "That's how we all should be." The crew gathered around them. Maya laughed, Jonas nodded in agreement, and Lena gave Kailari a supportive look. They were no longer just a human crew and an alien guest. They were a family. The news of Kailari's bravery and the defeat of the Azari warlords spread across the human alliance. Many were inspired by the story of an alien warrior who chose peace over power, who found friendship among strangers. Kailari was offered a place among the Allied fleets, a chance to help protect the galaxy she had come to care for. She accepted. Not out of duty or debt, but out of choice. In the months that followed, Kailari learned more about humanity and shared her own culture in return. She became a bridge between two worlds, showing that differences could be strengths. Elias watched her grow, proud of the friend she had become. One evening, as they looked out at a sunset on a distant colony, Kailari turned to Elias. "You once said humans help because it is who they are. I believe that now." Elias smiled. "It's true. We help because we care." Kailari nodded. "I want to help too. Not because I am asked, but because I want to." The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to face together. And so the story of Kailari, the rejected, abandoned alien warrior who pleaded to be a slave, became a tale of hope, courage, and friendship. She was no longer a slave. She was a sister, and, in the vastness of space, that made all the difference.